Merry Christmas, enthusiasts, and boy, have I got a present for you because I guess I'm doing some sort of review, slander, something to spice up the lead up to Christmas because Just Talking is back, guys. I think I'm going to focus on Alton Towers today because it's the only park in the country you can get lost in each and every time, and it's the home of the best ride in the country, the Octonauts coaster, and the founder of constant theme park events. Is the personality a bit much in this, or my other videos are really serious? Please tell me to tone it down if I'm making your ears bleed. Oh well, it's Christmas, what can I say? Please enjoy the little speed build in the background too. Okay, we're going big, giving you an entire tour of the Alton Towers map, starting off with arguably the most recognisable part of the park, Towers Street. Colourful buildings line the street that descends towards the lake where the gloomy towers sit with pride, and you get a feeling of wonder at the thought of, where the hell are all the rides? The immersion in the park is immediately next level. The tree level restrictions are honestly a blessing because each area feels disconnected and otherworldly, but it's also a curse because the only records the park can break is building a coaster with more neck-breaking inversions or going underground. But there are some places to sit, maybe look at a few pigeons as you people watch the 20-minute queue for donuts, and they play the absolutely fantastic park music on full blast. I can't fault it for its memorability, but with all the rides, I can't imagine you'll spend more than your lunch break there, as with any park entrance. Plus, who wants to hang around the swarm of school children that gather there and cry upon discovering the height restrictions? Yes, it happens way more than the park would like to admit. Then you spot out of the corner of your eye Cbeebies land, and its poor attempt to be concealed in foliage. Those yellow blobs are stained into my retinas, but at least it's good marketing. This is probably the only family area that is completely biased to early years. I'm not jealous or anything, but unlike Nickelodeon Land at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, it's tailor-made to the youngest guests, so it's no surprise it's not my favourite. But younger families might enjoy staying away from the brainwashing, ritual, and monster coming out of the ground areas of the park. Ever wanted to work alongside Postman Pat? Well, now you can hop into his van and deliver packages for free. Well, I guess you're paying to work for them by paying for your ticket, but let's ignore that. Or, if you were awful at driving, watch his sentient van drive around Cbeebies Land, the most hilarious mascot at the park. Like, just look at that thing. The land is filled with bright colours and things to look at, so it's absolutely irresistible to younger guests. I don't even know how they function with the legendary Macca Paca just a few steps away from other Cbeebies icons. Other than the rides, it has some brilliant play equipment and sensory activities, which I absolutely have to appreciate because not only does it include children who might not like rides, but it also makes it a memorable day out for guests with special needs who otherwise might be overwhelmed by the rest of the park. So I commend Merlin for considering that element. If you're a thrill seeker, the Octonauts coaster is for you. This thrillingly violent coaster will take you twirling into the deep sea with a surprise squirt of water, which has been highly speculated by riders to be soap or similar sour substances. It's just water, guys. It's not that bad. Unfortunately, I've been on it all of about 2 times and, it's a decent family coaster, but it doesn't have the whip wah minor of the runaway mine train, or the redeeming quality of the lifeless Duplo Dinos coaster. Sorry, that was too funny not to keep in. I was meant to say, of the lifeless Duplo dinosaurs spinning for all eternity that the coaster at Legoland has. Or, if you're a picky eater or just want a small sandwich in between rides, no matter your age, the Explorer's Lunchbox is perfect for a friendly bite and a Costa coffee to warm you up in the cold of British winter, spring, and the summer that isn't the 2 weeks of unbearable heat, and also autumn, of course. I've spoken way too much about Cbeebies Land and I'm starting to get worried, but to wrap it up, there's just a handful of family rides that mainly centre around vehicles, and there's fun shows and outdoor activities to try, and it keeps younger guests and their sticky hands away from the big rides. Then you start to wonder why you're in Cbeebies Land as a grown adult and wander down the pathway, rubbing your eyes in disbelief as Peter Rabbit waves you goodbye, and you contemplate what happened that made Storybook Land uncool. Loved Storybook Land. Shout out to Theme Park Worldwide for preserving a piece of Alton Towers history. You see something cool in the distance, a towering structure with dizzying screams echoing from it. But you can't go there yet. Spinball Whizzer is beside you. I'm joking, of course. Who doesn't love a bit of Spinball Whizzer fun? Although it is a shame it lost its Sonic sponsorship, the poster child of 2000-2010's capitalism, its striking blue and red colour scheme is nostalgic. It's always a good laugh to get on with mates and be thrown like a rag doll and smushed around each corner. It's a classic at the park, but it needs a little bit of love, as it's either got an impossibly long queue, part to do with its popularity and part to do with its low throughput, or it's broken. Merlin, put some grease on the bones and get this beauty running. But you press on and get to X Sector, and you are met with the sound of dystopian dubstep that will stick with you for your entire life. You're never getting rid of the sound of that melodic laughter, ever. You were then disrupted by knowledgeable children telling their parents that the Marmalizer used to spray actual laughing gas at riders, which is such an incredibly fun fact that it almost sounds untrue. That's because it is untrue. I don't know why so many people think this, but Merlin must have had a lot of spare cash and plenty of hidden waivers to pull off such a stunt. It's just a bit of water, like a scary Octonauts ride, but the mist isn't always on as the restraints now stink of years-old water. But who am I to say? I haven't actually been on it. Yes, I know that's the worst thing to say as an enthusiast, but amidst the massive queues and not wanting to ruin a stranger's ride photo by my massive face being sat next to them, and friends not wanting to ride, which I understand, I've never really had the opportunity. Although, it's the most recognisable coaster in the UK when it comes down to a global scale, but possibly for the wrong reasons. It's the only ride where the most dizzying part is actually leaving it, so for those who might be shaken by the 14 inversions, you may never be seen again, as you have to exit through a sleepy maze of Smiler-themed swirls and dark hallways. One thing to note is it's a fairly smooth ride, given its age, and Gerstlauer did an incredible job designing this industrial beast to be a terrifying piece in the area. Beside it is the corpse of Enterprise. The ride has more superfans than any other ride, but no one ever looks happy after coming off of it. But it looks like it isn't coming back, so fans of the ride will be upset to see it overgrown with the carriages removed and no signs of life. I wonder what they might replace it with. It's the only flat ride that fits into that corner and doesn't look out of place, so it may be getting an exciting new toilet block rather than the one by the Smiler that is just a bush with toilets in it. It's so hidden. It will be missed, however. Then, up the hill is Oblivion, but I can't go there without a quick flashback. Perfectly festive. It was 2021, a peak Scarefest day, and I was feeling a little big-headed. I had nudged my friends that even though I joked they were scared of the clowns, I'd be the one crying by the end of the day. Expert foreshadowing from me. But I was safe in the knowledge that actors don't scare during the day, don't traumatise the children and all that. However, whilst reading a map on a friend's phone, we turned to see the spooky prisoner thing standing behind us with his guards. We obviously laughed, because while scary they're quite funny when they look so miserable, but we jokingly turned and jogged away, big mistake to say the least, because the trio came after us. My mates all run safely to the bin, but I, still with the phone in my hand, bolt it up the hill. It would have been fine if it wasn't for me breaking off, because the actor takes off, sprinting, and the guards let go of him, allowing him to chase me up the hill at full speed. I was shouting all kinds of words as I turned and saw him catching up to me. It was awful. Once it was over, I shuffled into the Oblivion queue and would never forget my lesson. Never take your chances when a scare actor is around. Once you're in the queue, you're either going to regret it or have a great time. You regret if you walk in and see a line of people waiting at the top of the queue. A less than 1 minute experience with a 30-minute plus queue is not a good way to use your time. I always get walk on rides, and they can happen at any point in the day, and they always make the ride so much better because you spent as much time as you earned on the ride. It's actually a lot of fun, being the first of its kind, the first vertical drop coaster in the world, manufactured by the iconic Bolliger and Mabillard. It's a nice piece of history, and it's still a very unique attraction, seen rarely across the world. I'm a big fan of it. The merchandise is comfortable too. So who can complain with a ride that's a bit of fun, as you listen to the other people screech as they endure the drop, even though to me it has equal force to a gust of wind, and looking at the pictures where your friends look like creatures, or that one ride photo where I was looking dead at the camera. The only thing about its soundtrack is that it's like a broken record, and while it's fun to have a little rave in the queue as the same snippet of the melody of the song loops, after a while you begin to wonder when the rest of the song will kick in. Possibly it's actually stuck at most times, because I could swear there's a rest to the song. As you leave X Sector, fully terrified by the pieces of metal that live there, you fancy a bite to eat. This isn't any chicken. This is chicken you can buy at the park that doesn't cause you to remortgage your house. While still a bit pricey, it's a good bit of fast food that is at a similar price point to McDonald's, so it's worth visiting for a bite to eat before you venture into the rest of the park in this one big circle. You stumble out of X Sector, ready to be lulled to sleep by the Smiler theme for the next month, and you find yourself at the towers themselves. This dust monster of a building is absolutely incredible, to say the least. Alton Towers has been smacked by Mother Nature with storms and the terrifying prospect of having many owners, and yet it still stands in its majority. This seasoned pensioner actually holds a ride within its walls. Hex. Hex is a stunner of a ride, and I won't hear anything about it. To believe I used to slander this gem of a ride is so disrespectful. While the graphics in the story look older than the towers themselves, it has that certain 2000s charm. Not to mention the story is gripping enough, taking guests on a haunting journey into the mad mind of a previous owner who went insane after a grotesque woman asked for his help, but he rejected her, put a curse on him wherein each branch that fell from a great oak tree would cause the death of a family member. Sure enough, a branch fell and a family member mysteriously died, and so he changed the oak so no branch could fall, and sealed himself into a vault to protect himself from the curse. It's a local legend, and a very interesting one indeed. A great tale to keep in mind when walking through the nearby forest, as you might just stumble across that famed chained tree. Then, the music. Hauntingly smooth. Oh, it's my favourite at the park. It's so triumphant, but not too in your face. It perfectly sets you up for the whole experience and keeps you immersed. After feeling the ground shake beneath you in the first set of pre-shows as the soundtrack blasts out wonderfully, the doors swing open to reveal the massive vault and its lofty ceilings. Suitably, there is scaffolding for the excavation works that you were a part of. When I last visited, the grandeur really moved me. It was unlike anything I'd experienced before. I was almost stumbling about the halls, choked with excitement. I cannot believe a ride like this exists. It's just amazing. The vault dips into terrifying darkness as images appear on the walls, figures emerge from the shadows, music shakes the ground as a fairly spooky voice narrates more of the story. This was the moment I went to grab the railing to balance myself, grabbed way clear of the bar and stumbled into the railing. A little trip, let's say. But then the light returns and you can see where you're going, so you enter the ride area. This is where it gets spooky. I really am going to town on this hex segment. I'm so sorry. You sit down, it smells like gently burning logs and just that you shouldn't be inhaling, but oh well, nostalgia. The lap bars then go down and you wonder why you actually need them because you are sat in such a low squatting position that it seems impossible to move. Once the doors swing shut, the incredible theme begins and the Vekoma Madhouse gets swinging, and you realise that isn't true. This ride has a kick to it. The sheer force and speed of the room turning around you is enough to fool you countless times into thinking you are going upside down. Truly, it's the most stomach-flipping intense ride at the park, but it's a real good time. Not to mention the swinging of it gets some height, so you might shuffle a bit on your travels. That's where the lap bar comes in. I was laughing the whole way through. Honestly, it's up there with my favourite rides at the park. It's a phenomenal attraction at the park, and I can say from the point of view of someone who has experienced similar models of this ride, this is the best one by a long shot. Nothing of its kind will beat Hex. It's on a whole new level of being a themed experience. I'm a massive fan of this ride, and its charms have gripped me tightly since I last visited a few months ago, which can't be said about every ride, and just talking about it fills me with awe. Wow, that was way too much about Hex, but I could go on for days about how happy that ride makes me. Anyway, if you can still walk after Hex, you'll be spat out into the corpse of Cloud Cuckoo Land, a true classic that will be sorely missed. All that remains is the driving school, which doesn't look half as exciting as I remember it to have been from when I was younger, but at least that little slice of nostalgia still remains. Let's skip down memory lane and talk about that legendary area, because its replacement, the world of David Walliams and Alton Dungeons, cannot replace it. There's something about its colour scheme, a throw-up of washy pastels, that made it so childhoody. The fact that it was a colourful playground with a few fantastical rides like the mushroom chair swing and a carousel, and an oddly terrifying dark ride makes it all that more memorable. You could bet you'd witness a meltdown in Wobble World when someone became too tall to bounce or was thrown from the top of a slide, and it was so much fun. You could bet someone would be crying on the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory ride. That person would be me. But you can't blame me. As much as I loved the story, younger me was mortified at being taken on a boat through a massive dark factory where the lucky guests all meet a dark fate, and I got to see it in the flesh. Of course I was scared at the spooky figures yelling out into the darkness. To make it worse, there's then a 3D simulator of the magic lift, and I wasn't warned about this feature, so I was less than impressed at the prospect of being in the sky in a glass box. Of course, I could tell it was a screen, but the unrivaled theming of the ride really had me fooled that I was in the world of Roald Dahl and Quentin Blake. Given the chance now, I would ride this beauty again in a heartbeat. We may never see something as strange at the park. Even now, I can still vividly recall the uncanny animations they played, the darkness of the scenes, and the sweet smell of chocolate they pumped into the station. Before it was a whimsical chocolate factory, it was Toyland Tours, a ride with a catchy theme tune and a tour through all the most popular toys of the time, including our favourite hedgehog you couldn't escape, Sonic. Now, it's the dingy Alton Towers dungeon, where the boat ride is, well, just a boat. As much as the experience is comical and creepy as all the dungeons are, it feels like a miss for the ride system that has been home to some of the most memorable attractions of the UK's childhood, to be used for a boat to take a trip in almost complete darkness. There's a bit of theming, but other than that, it's just Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but take away the theming and the bits that made it Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, paint it black, and you have it. Some bits are alright, and the rest of the attraction is good. But other than taking another ride on that familiar ride layout, it honestly lacks much value elsewhere. That's such a shame, honestly, because they could have gone to town on it. Because we know they can do scary boat rides. Because that chocolate factory gave me nightmares. I'm not going to talk much about the world of David Walliams, but I am a critic of it, especially given it replaced Cloud Cuckoo Land, which was more unpolished and relaxed. I just find the whole area to be too clean. It's hard to enjoy yourself in such a sterile environment, in my opinion. I know I'm not the majority on this opinion, but I feel like the area is severely missed in comparison to its predecessor. They have the massive town hall building which just sits empty because the queue for Raj's really long named flat ride is in front of it. And we know that building is massive because it has held more Ice Age 4D movies than you can count on both hands. But I guess they're no longer competing against PortAventura for most random 4D films. Even just having a restaurant or a really strange David Walliams cartoon would make that building look so much better than just a big blue rectangle. Truth be told, they probably didn't have a 4D film. A spooky 4D experience is a rite of passage for any British person, because that's what the Gangster Granny ride is for. While it has some nice set pieces, most of it is constant screens, which just upsets me. I get it's petty, and I get the ride was very expensive, but I'd rather have wood stiff animatronics than screens. It just lacks immersion because I could just watch the video on YouTube and have the same effect, just without the fancy speakers and wall-to-wall effect. I don't know what it is, but there's something so disappointing about watching screens replace practical effects, because nothing will truly ever beat the wonder of seeing handcrafted, unique figures moving before your eyes in a fully constructed set. After running away from the colours, you find yourself in moody teenager land, Dark Forest, home of dramatic advertisement and trees. You're not in this area if you don't do an awful impression of the Rita announcement. You have to escape! Go, go, go! That was so bad. While Rita lacks that intensity that other launch coasters have, it's such a good laugh. With an acceleration of 0 to 60 in just over 2 seconds, there are some beautiful ride photos to be had. If the queue is short, you'll catch me doing re-rides just to have the feeling of soaring around the trees at such close proximity. It's over within a blink. It's one of those rides where you just enjoy it, much with the other rides at the park, and you shouldn't give it such high expectations if you want a good ride. You should be prepared for a refreshing blast of speed to welcome you into the park and get you awake if it's one of your first rides of the day. Only criticism I actually have is for its restraints. To leave the winding layout on display and hide it in the tree line, there is no sheltered station building, so at all times the trains are exposed to the elements, and they stink. absolutely disgusting. It's almost as if someone had tried to take a bite out of it, and upon finding it is firm rubber and foam, they just started licking it. I know that's vile, but I cannot explain the smell of dried up rain better than that. They should maybe get some rain covers for the restraints, just so the experience isn't spoiled by the odd stale stench. It is still a lot of fun to get a ride on when they don't have to open up the awful queue line that dips all the way down to the exit of 13. That thing is scarier than any scare maze. Then, just a few steps from the massive tyre entrance to Rita, is the entrance to 13, the master of hype at the park. It gained a sinister reputation from the moment it opened, with a creepy children's nursery rhyme as its theme, and 2 trailers, one of which could only be shown after 9 PM watershed. It was deemed so creepy. The park then brought out the wraiths, hooded creatures that had escaped from the excavation site. You know, I think Alton Towers has a thing about excavations, but it's a pretty good theme given the grounds. But these things went into Ugland, a family area, scaring young children from ever touching the dark forest. This level of fear simply wasn't enough, and the park alluded to an age restriction of ages 16 to 55 being the only ones able to ride the coaster due to its spookiness. This was never enforced, but many younger guests didn't want to find out what happened on the ride anyway. It's a very well-themed experience, taking a spooky walk through the forest before entering the station, a dark box where I always point out the now-defunct Tesla coil that no one notices due to the squinting you have to perform to avoid falling in the dark. Once you're on it, you are gently launched from the station, rounded a corner, and up a 60-foot drive tyre lift hill, and down into the forest where you are sent over various airtime hills before halting in a crypt. I never tell people who haven't a clue about the ride what is about to happen. I leave it as a surprise because the look on their faces when the room disappears into darkness is hilarious, and you can tell when the lights go down who hasn't been told and is about to have the shock of their day. Please try it if you have friends who are clueless about the next scene. There are flickering lights in the stone crypt, and there is a tarp at the end, which riders are supposed to assume is the way out. But the room then descends into darkness, and the train jolts, and I laugh as someone always says, "I don't like it," or gets way too scared. Then the floor just drops, sending you free-falling approximately 16 feet into darkness. This thrilling burst of air is welcome on summer days, great for cooling down. Finally, you are launched backwards, swirling about as wind smacks you in the face until you emerge out of the ground, ready to hit a transfer track that gently launches you into the station with the haunting reminder, if you go down to the woods today, you're in for a big surprise. After many re-rides on that awesome coaster and its wonderful pops of airtime, you'll probably want to take the Sky Ride because, trust me, you'll get lost in the gardens. While they are beautiful with perfectly trimmed plants and little pieces of Alton history, such as a stunning pagoda fountain, it might be best to return for Lightopia to take it all in, as getting lost in a big garden isn't optimal if you want to get on all the rides possible. The Sky Ride is always fun, sitting with a bunch of strangers who give you strange looks when you start reciting the history of the park, or put your hands up when the ride launches from the station. Not a clue why they look at me funny. If you still want to see the beautiful gardens, taking the Sky Ride rather than circling the other way back to Tower Street is a good idea, as it gives a nice bird's eye view of the wonderful trees and pathways nestled in the grounds, and never has a big queue. It's a brilliant shortcut. You'll then land in Forbidden Valley, an apocalyptic wasteland controlled by the Phalanx, a top-secret group. This is the home of Nemesis, a massive alien that had stayed dormant for many centuries until it was disturbed and began luring guests towards it. The organisation decided to chain it down and keep it stable, so now you can ride the monster at the park. It features some really great, fast and shockingly smooth inversions for its age, with 2 corkscrews, a soaring 0G roll and a vertical loop that really immerses you into the story of being grabbed by the alien and losing control. This year, the Phalanx determined the beast to be unstable and hosted a closing event, which disguised the refurbishment with the lore of the ride. It will return in 2024 after a nearly full retrack, and I cannot wait to see how it runs as a much smoother, faster coaster returned to its former glory as one of the most intense coasters in the UK. The soundtrack immaculate for its ride, with swooping bass and haunting violins dominating the track, imitating the relentless lure of the creature, and the marching of the formal Phalanx trying to take control of the untamable beast. The ride experience is so memorable. It's a masterclass in how to build a roller coaster, and Wadley puts so much love into it, and it's so clear. Though it might be a bit of a headbanger in its progressing age, it is undoubtable that it has the potential to become so much better when it returns. And already it has a fun, fast layout that leaves you wanting more, but not to the point where you feel it didn't satisfy your expectations. It's that feeling where you enjoyed it so much you want it again. The merchandise isn't the strongest in the park. I'd love to see more focus on it and maybe some embroidered pieces rather than the sticker designs. But that being said, I'm sat next to my nemesis mug right now, so I should stop being picky. Down the hill is Galactica, a very special ride, but one with a never-ending identity crisis. What does it want to be? First, it was Air, then it was Galactica, the only difference between the two being that Galactica has a new lick of paint, a few theming pieces which are quite nice, and a new name. It looks a little out of place, but it could fit in quite well if the park conjured a winged alien design and painted it similar to Nemesis, although it looks well placed next to the roller coaster restaurant. It's in a very odd place where it'd look too modern for Nemesis, but too dark for the restaurant nearby. Regardless, it's such an incredible ride, and I feel like the minimal theme to it really brings the focus to the coaster itself, which the previous VR installment took away. It's a smooth flying coaster that takes you flipping and gliding through the area and small woodland, with two inversions, one of which being an exciting lay-down invert, where you get a view of the sky not knowing where you were going, and the push of the coaster train gives a bit of a kick to this fairly gentle giant, and the other an inline twist. For once, you can feel like an agile alien bird as you dip and soar. It is such a fun feeling to be in awe at the sensation of flight with every other rider, even though it isn't the most thrilling. It's very unique, especially for the UK, and is definitely worth a ride. Although, never trust the queues. I got in line for a 5-minute queue and was there 30 minutes after, so make sure you observe the line for yourself. Thankfully, I went on an off-peak day, and so we had plenty of walk-on rides for the rest of the day. You might catch a donut as you leave from I can't even pronounce it, Nemesis, and maybe a ride on the Blade, a classic pirate ship which is a nice ride in the summer, where you can hear Forbidden Valley roar and have a bit of flat ride fun as the breeze cools you down. As you walk up the hill, you'll find yourself in Katanga Canyon, home of the rapids and the runaway mine train. To quickly touch on the rapids, they're not the most active these days, as between the periods of maintenance, a lot of the waterfall elements no longer work. Over the next few seasons, or even during this winter, I'd love to see them restore some of the effects so it once again becomes a decent soaker during the summer, rather than a light tinkle for an enjoyable cool down. It is still worth a ride in the summer, as how can you pass up the chance of getting cool, or even the miracle that the water effects work again? The Runaway Mine Train is a pretty standard family-powered coaster manufactured by Mack Rides, who also manufactured Icon at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. They are very different coasters to say the least. Sometimes you get 2 laps, and sometimes you get 3. What an exciting game of chance to teach children. But each time you get a super fast ride of 22 miles per hour around the area and its many trees. No shortage of trees at Alton Towers. And pass through a tunnel that the rapids also passes through, which is a pretty fun little interaction element, to be honest. It's a decent bit of fun to go on with friends if it hasn't got a ridiculous queue, which it almost always has during the summer, and see what terrified you as a child as you ride this mellow train through the woods. It's perfect for families, so I can't knock it at that factor. I swear it was the most intense thing going when I was younger. But peeking through the trees like every family-friendly character is a giant wooden sacrifice statue. How cute! With flames pouring from its LED screens and of course actual flames from its shoulders, Wicker Man is one loud coaster. I swear they must be playing the bellowing sound of the wicker-woven trains thundering above you, because while it sounds amazing, centuries-old coasters are quieter, or at least I think they are. Truth be told, I'm not often caught listening to a relaxing Big Dipper Sounds 1-hour edition on YouTube. This GCI monster is a blast, with a nice long layout, filled to the brim with tight turns, near-miss elements and hills that drag you about. Oh, and it has plenty of thick mist, so you get a light dashing of water on your face, once again for those 2 unbearable weeks of summer heat. It's a really solid themed experience with a spooky pre-show featuring a pretty nice effect. It tells a story of how the Wicker Man needs a sacrifice, us, and we must go up in flames to appease him. But it's our goal to escape the Wicker Man, who, after the lights dim in the showroom, emerges from the cloth screen, warping from a man to a ram and setting alight with some great projection mapping. It's quite a big piece and really sets the scene with some scent pods of burning wood and smoke. As I've mentioned, the ride experience is really good. It's silky smooth and the thundering sound of the trains really adds to it. I think that's what makes it that much more, other than the layout which is great, is the train design. Similar to Taron at Phantasialand, you are seated low to the track with a chunky but not overtly tight lap bar strapped to you, allowing for bucket loads of airtime. On either side of you are just gaps. There's only a little bit on either side of the seats to rest your arm on, making you feel much more exposed. While it isn't the most intense experience at the park by a long shot, you are still treated to a fast, agile coaster that really keeps wooden traditional coasters on the map, and it stays with you because of how involved you feel in the story. It really stands to show that by having a long layout that satisfies a rider, a train design that is safe, comfortable, but still allows for airtime and the feeling of exposure, and a strong theme that is memorable and unique, a coaster can be made that guests will keep coming back to time and time again. Once you're out into Mutiny Bay, there's a few things to do. You could go on the heave-ho spinning pirate ship, which is a children's ride, but that adds to the comedic value when a group of adults are screaming their lungs out on it. Or Marauder's Mayhem, a spinning barrel ride might be perfect after a nice lunch at one of the many food outlets, great for feeling wonderful after a bite to eat. Something more gentle might be your thing. Immerse yourself in the world of pirates and screaming children as you venture into Sharkbait Reef, a small sea life attraction that is quite pleasant with its nice theming and engaging walkthrough experience for all ages. Once again, this also scared me when I was younger. How embarrassing. That's not your thing? How dare you? Well, for not enjoying the gentle delights and delicacies of Mutiny Bay, I challenge you to a battle of the seas. On battle galleons. Like the kind of stranger you are, soak a bunch of random guests as you man the cannon of your own ship and have a right laugh. With tons of water effects everywhere, it's hard to stay dry, which is great for warm days, or a painful joke in the winter. And it's always nice landing high shots across theming pieces as you traverse a layout that overlooks the peaceful lake. It's a bit of fun. What's not to love about this classic attraction? As you stumble up the pathway, laughing as your bag of merchandise that has bankrupted you swings at your side, you see the rooftops of Tower Street once again, and realise your tour is over. No, just talking, I was having such a good time. Oh, well, the park doesn't close until late. Replay the video and I'll take you on another loop if you want. That's it for this very long special. I hope you've had just as much fun listening to my gibberish as I've had making it. I want to thank you all for sticking with me this year. It's been so exciting getting so many more viewers and being able to share my love for theme parks with so many wonderful people. I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas and I cannot wait for the 2023 season. It's going to be a big one. I hope you've enjoyed this special. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe if you did. This was Just Talking. Bye bye.